Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm standing for Student Union President. After yesterday's election debate, we had tons of leftover questions. We just couldn't get to you all. Very unfortunate. But you were also interested in us that we have some left over. Now, I was going to write answers to these and then I thought to myself, well, I'm going to make you a video. And so the first question is, what area would you focus on that's not been covered by other VP roles or positions? And I think from a personal perspective, the answer to that is that I don't really feel that the VP role has had a really good sit down to think about the cost of living, which is a huge issue in Brighton. I don't live in Brighton because I can't afford to live in Brighton. And I'd like to place greater emphasis on that if I were to be president, because at the moment I feel that students are being forced into a position of absolute poverty, which does nothing for the mental well-being of students in any capacity. And I think that if we can challenge what is going on, if we can improve on what is going on, then we can get a better result for students. The second question that we have here is, as an English lit student, the library only has 10 books for 100 plus students. What will you do to help students who have limited resources on their courses? So I'm an English literature student too, so I totally feel your pain. I mean, the sheer horror of getting hold of books, particularly at assignment times, it shouldn't be this difficult. I know the university is embarking on a scheme to get more core books across the board actually available online for us to download, print off chapters to use in our assignments and such. But I feel that more investment is needed in our libraries and in our books. It seems to me that student numbers are going up, but the number of books available are not going up. And, you know, I feel that this should be a core area of investment that I would certainly be looking to see improved during my time as president. So the third question we have here is, as SU president, how would you support people in need? And this is quite a wide-reaching thing, so I do feel that my policy of being accessible and visible on campus will help people in need, because they will have somewhere to come to, you know, if they're thinking, oh, I don't know what to do, but the student union president is actually available on campus and can have a chat. I'd like to be in a position where people can do that, and then I can say to them, well, you know, actually, have you contacted student support services, you know, to talk over your mental health needs? Have you spoken to, you know, study support at the SU if you're, you know, feeling that you're being, you know, in a situation where you're struggling with your studying? Have you thought about contacting this society that that has similar interests to yourself, that maybe you'll be able to, you know, find somewhere with common ground? Because, you know, being in need is such a wide and diverse thing. As a mature student officer, I've dealt with students who are in need, and they've had a wide range of issues. Some people I point off into the direction of the current president and vice president, because I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to help. I pointed people in the direction of student support services, to the university support services, and, you know, even just lent my ear as, you know, as a point of contact for people to be able to have a chat and come and help. So that is what I'll be doing. So our fourth question was, the issues with transport at the start of the academic year cause tensions between students and local residents. How would you go about improving relations with students and the local community, particularly in the Coldean area? I think my first port of call to sort of start dealing with that and start healing these rifts that have appeared would be, firstly, to sort of go to Coldean resident meetings. I know they have them, and I know that they don't have any student representation. Go and visit them to tell them what's been going on. And I just feel that, in particular with what happened with the buses, if somebody had been in a position that they'd gone and spoke at these meetings, had more contact with the councillors up in Coldean to explain what's going on, what we're doing, how we can communicate and work with the Coldean residents, this would not have happened. It's important to me that we heal the rift between us because, you know, we're always going to have halls up at Coldean now. We've got Varley Park there, but these residents are always going to live there, and we need their support to continue having, a really good, thriving relationship within the city. So yes, my first steps would be to go out to residents' meetings, meet with the councillors, potentially even meet with their MP that Coldean falls under, to make sure that people in authority know that we have a handle on the situation, know that we're trying to sort the situation, and also know that we're listening to them, we can hear them, and I think that's something that they were lacking, so that is what I would be doing. Okay, the fifth question is, what policy would you enact in order to improve the viability of volunteer officers? I'm assuming this question means giving the volunteer officers sort of more resources and scope. I hope so, because that's what I'm going to answer. I'm a volunteer officer myself at the moment. I'm a mature student officer. And one of the first things it's a policy that I would be enacting is actually to give our volunteer officers a budget to work with so that they can get out to campuses that aren't their normal home campuses, so they can go and talk to students and hold forums there. I would also ensure that they get full support in sort of going out to these campuses to listen, but also I think that the budget should be used to do things to maybe arrange like events, and not necessarily academically minded events. I do social events with mature students, and I think having a bit of a budget for the volunteer officers to put on a little social event to get people together, to have a chat together while providing a bit of tea, coffee or a drink, is not something that is so completely out there. It would have made my life a lot easier as a mature student officer to have had access to a small budget from the university, from the student union, sorry. So I would like to actually offer that to future volunteer officers while I was president. Hi, so the sixth question is, what will you do to support volunteers, as Brighton is very expensive, and how will you support students that volunteer? I think this is a really good question because I did some research for the student union on how much it actually costs a student to live here, and I worked out that if a student came from a family that was of the national average wage, they still had to work an additional 24 hours at minimum wage on top of their university studies, which should be 37 hours a week, but is often more than, just to have a decent chance of living in Brighton. And I think for various reasons people volunteer. We have various things that we volunteer at. I volunteer myself. I'm a club leader, and it sort of goes. It doesn't seem to me that it should be that far of a reach to actually financially support people that are actually in volunteer roles, outside the university, or one that is found through the university, in some sort of way is to say, you're doing great work, thanks, here's a bit of an extra grant, support bursary to help with the living costs while you take up your valuable time volunteering. So, question number 7 is, as president, having strong leadership skills is important. What experience of leading do you have? I have actually quite a lot of experience leading. I sound really ridiculous saying that, I think, but I genuinely do. So I mentioned in the last question that I'm actually a club leader, so as part of my role, I devise and work on activities for children, boisterous children, and see that gets implemented and led through, and which is a very challenging task. I'm also a school governor, which means that I'm part of the senior leadership team of the school one of my children attends, and leadership skills in that regard are it's not just being the one who says I'm going to go forward and do this. It's also good leadership to be able to look at a situation and say, actually, how can you do these things better? And it's actually my position as a school governor that I think will really, really put me above my fellow candidates, because the president of the SU actually goes onto the board of governors for the university, and having already served on the board of governors, I do know like the little twists and twerks that end up going into budgets, or the little jargons, and I can lead in that situation and actually be the one to say, okay, I see that money going in, but why isn't it doing that? I see you've got this excess over here, why isn't that going back into students? And just go in there and be fearless towards the Vice Chancellor, because we have to be fearless to the to my head teacher of the school that I'm the governor of, and it's intimidating, but it's something that as a governor and as a leader you have to do, and that is what I would that is the sort of thing that you would be seeing from me as president when dealing with the university on behalf of the students. So the 8th question is, what do you think should be the union's number one priority in 2018-2019? The cost of living. It has to be the cost of living. As I've said earlier in this video, students are in absolute poverty in Brighton. They don't have the weighting of London grants and maintenance to support them. They have to work excessive hours, over the top of study hours, to actually be able to live, and then they don't have enough hours to actually live and enjoy being a student living in Brighton. And I think we need to tackle that. So that is where my policies for getting better bursaries for students, such as housing bursary, and again grants for students who are volunteering over working. Also, going into the whole idea that I want to see student union staff members who are, students within the university, as well as student staff for the university, not being paid the minimum wage that they're getting now, which is the minimum wage for over 25s, but actually a living wage that they can live on and then not have to work on, because we can lead with this. We can do that. I believe the capacity is there. I think it is very important that if we're going to challenge the university about the cost of living anywhere, that the student union should start by saying, well, we pay a living wage to our student staff, so what's your move? What are you going to do? We put our money where our mouth is. So that is going to be my number one priority. It is going to be the cost of living. It is going to make sure that our students are coping with the cost of living in Brighton, and that we can, do everything that we can to alleviate this worry off them. Question is, student engagement is something vital to improving the university and SU services. Student engagement is usually low. What would you do to increase engagement levels? Well, I think this is where my entire core manifesto comes into being. It's about being open, accessible and transparent. It's basically, for me, in my opinion, the one way that you get good student engagement is being there, is being visible on the different campuses, being visible, having that open door policy, wandering around with the big, with the hoodie that says, I'm the president of the SU, and talking to people and, saying, just saying hello and telling people what they're doing. And other things that I've said that I want to do in terms of improving engagement is that I'd like to be in the position where I'm writing a newsletter every week, every month, and it literally will print it on A3 and we will display it in every SU outlet so people can pop by and see it. We can have copies just available on the shop for people to grab, and then we'll have it online so that people can actually see what we're doing for them and how we're doing it. Because it is low. I mean, I've spoken to so many students today with the first day of voting who've just said to me, oh well, I didn't know that was going on, or we elect the president and vice presidents, and I think students should know that. They shouldn't have to be approached by somebody and then look at you surprised going, what, we vote for people? No, we need to be out there talking to people long before we get to sort of things such as elections, and being visible and welcoming to say, hi, come and talk to me, I'm here on campus. Is because at the moment it's, when I talk to this president, I've got to go to Malta, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be that we come to you. So that is how I'd improve engagement, by actually being there and committing to being there. Okay, so we're on to our final question, which is 50% of students at Brighton are mature students. How would you ensure the different needs of these students are met? I'll let you into a little secret. It's actually 60%. A lot of people sort of tend to think, all the postgraduate students are mature, which is true. But also 40% of undergrads are mature students too, which actually even surprised me. So, as mature student officer of the last sort of few months, I have actually dealt with a huge range of different issues, and I've dealt with issues that more relate to some of the younger mature students who are in their 20s. I've dealt with issues of older mature students who are in their 60s, and I've dealt with stuff in between. And the way that I feel that we go about this, and this is how I do it in general, is that I look for common threads of issues. So students may come to me saying a whole, multitude of things that that they're worried about or aren't going well for them, and then actually when you sit back and read it back a little bit later, you might realise to yourself, actually there's a common thread to these problems, so can that be fixed? And then, because I'm the mature student officer, I'm in that position where I can go back to these students, because obviously I know who they are, and say, look, actually you're not the only one, this is my suggestion, how do you guys feel about it? And I think to deal with the mature students is, from a president point of view, would require much better engagement from the VP office, particularly academic experience and welfare, as well as working together with the incoming, well for me, if I'm president, it will be the incoming mature student officer, to actually really focus on campaigning to to highlight the different issues that we can deal with for mature students, and that actually we do have a broad spectrum of things that we are aware of for mature students, that we are aware of, for instance, I had some students who are, have senior rail cards and asking about Unizone tickets, and it's showing that actually we can think of these things and say, actually, we're in the pipeline of working on that, which is something I'm working on at the moment. And it's hard, it's difficult, I'm going to be honest. I've completely forgotten what it's like to be 21, and I have no experience yet of what it is to be 60. But it's about finding the common threads. finding the things that, you know, link all these concerns together, and you know, making these improvements for the betterment. And it's important to know that you can't make every single thing perfectly better for everyone, but you know, you can make these huge differences and these huge changes. And frankly, I could go on for ages on this subject, so I'm going to have to stop myself, I think. But I believe that as my experience as a mature student officer and the success with some of the issues that I've worked with this year, I have a really great understanding of, you know, what it is mature students need in Brighton, you know, based not just on their location, but or their age, but just by what their courses are. And that, you know, I can take this into the presidency office, I can take this to the future VPs, and we can, you know, basically pull mature students out of the pigeonhole that the university have put them in and give them a better experience. Well, that's 10 questions. Thank you so much for sending them. I hope my other colleagues will be answering them shortly. I hope you didn't mind the video, but I just figured that you didn't want to read reams and reams of my writing. Instead, you can just be, you know, have your ears bashed and listen to me. So, you know, do vote for me. I'm going to be fighting the cost of living. I'm going to be, you know, making this university, making the student union open, transparent, you know, doing all the things that need to really, really improve, you know, the accessibility, you know, how we campaign and how we talk to students. Thank you.